In the depths of Manufactorum Tertius, beneath 17 levels of industrial prayer and sacred steam, Unit 7 Gabriel performs the 47th iteration of calibration sequence Kappa Red. His augmetic hands, steel fingers fused to organic palms scarred with old burns, guide ammunition casings through precision dies with mechanical devotion. Each movement follows sacred rhythm: grasp, align, compress, release. 47 seconds per casing, no deviation permitted. The Omnissiah's perfection made manifest in flesh and steel. Between the 46th and 47th second of each cycle, oil-stained lips shape a forbidden syllable. Not a work chant, not Binharic prayer. A name: Gabriel. The sound emerges barely audible beneath respirator hiss, and the thunder of munition presses, lost in vapor that low crawls along drainage gratings, where incense clings and solvents cannot rinse. Yet the ritual persists, muscle memory surviving neural purge, a ghost haunting the machine. This documentary treats the 41st millennium's servitors not as monsters or furniture, but as the Imperium's most ubiquitous workforce, human brains pruned by rite, harnessed by machine, leased to perpetual war. They are state-owned assets, Mechanicus sanctified composites of flesh and steel, their consciousness scrubbed for optimal utility. Official doctrine promises mercy through amnesia, the surgical removal of pain, fear, and troublesome individuality. What remains should serve with perfect compliance, minds freed from the burden of choice. Yet names persist. Our investigation reveals a grim arithmetic. In the Imperium's war economy, the machine is never clean. It is layered with what could not be erased. Overseer Vex Tertius observes from his elevated platform data slate recording performance metrics with devotional precision. His augmetic eye tracks variance patterns across the production line. His organic eye, the one that remembers being fully human before partial conversion, notices the lip movement. Protocol demands immediate investigation. Anomalous behavior requires documentation, analysis, corrective action. His finger hovers over the Vox Kill rune, pulsing amber on his control panel. One touch would send kill phrases directly into Unit 7 Gabriel's neural implants, terminating higher functions while preserving mechanical components for reclamation. Clean, efficient, final. The mathematics of perfect compliance versus the mathematics of imperial necessity. Production quota stands at 94.3% completion. Replacing Unit 7 Gabriel requires minimum 3-hour recalibration for any substitute servitor. The Overseer calculates 47 seconds per casing multiplied by remaining batch units equals 4.7 hours continuous operation required to meet administratum expectations. The kill phrase remains unspoken. Arithmetic overrides ideology. This is the first mercy, not kindness, but logistics. The Mechanicus boasts precise numbers for everything: cortical, excision percentages, implant rejection rates, cognitive retention benchmarks calculated to 8 decimal places. Binharic leashes carry command pulses across cranial lattices. Nemo salts drip onto exposed dura mater to cauterize thought pathways like brine on meat. Lex Mechanicus 9. Theta certifies 99.7% purity of amnesia. The Emperor's grace manifest in diligent tools. Watch the production floor instead. Steam hisses from coolant lines overhead. The air tastes of sacred oils mixed with human sweat from flesh workers tending delicate machinery. A voxbox repeats litanies tuned to broken attention spans. Bend your will, still your hand, serve the throne, meet the tally. Servitors respond with micro-adjustments, visible only when you know the trick of watching pulses and fingers together. Our analysis has uncovered two systemic phenomena challenging official compliance narratives. First, ghost protocols, anomalous reemergences of human behaviors in subjects whose neural pathways are theoretically purged. These manifest as inexplicable preferences, unconscious rituals, responses to stimuli that should trigger no recognition. Second, index anima surplus, a mysterious line item appearing in classified budgets of servitor facilities across known space. The administratum calls it optimization slippage. The Mechanicus terms it post-human synergy. The ecclesiarchy declares it the emperor's grace. The numbers rise when machines behave slightly more like people. Unit 7. Gabriel continues his appointed task. Ammunition casings flowing through calibration, dies with exceptional precision. His performance metrics register 97th percentile efficiency, marred only by minor vocalization anomalies requiring future observation. The Overseer's data slate stores this information alongside thousands of similar reports, statistical fragments painting pictures larger than any single supervisor comprehends. In budget annexes stamped with 19 seals, Index Anima Surplus appears as a counting adjustment applied after calibration cycles, varying by subsector and cult fabricator. When questioned, officials provide 3 different definitions and new escorts. The term defies conventional accounting for material or energy costs, hinting at commodification of the very consciousness the Mechanicus claims to expunge. The shift bell tolls bronze through manufactorum depths. Unit 7 Gabriel completes his final calibration cycle and assumes rest position, optical sensors dimming to conservation mode. But organic lips continue their quiet work, shaping the name one final time, before overseer footsteps fade and great machines settle into maintenance rhythms. Production quota achieved, 100.2% completion with acceptable variance parameters. The Emperor's will served through perfect fusion of flesh and steel, consciousness optimized for imperial necessity. Yet in darkness between shifts, surrounded by sleeping machinery and distant night cycle prayers, something that was once human remembers what it chose to call itself. The quota has been met. The name survives another day's scrubbing. Tomorrow brings 47 more seconds per casing, and between each cycle, the ghost will whisper its forbidden ritual. Not rebellion, recognition, not malfunction, memory. The Imperium's perfect servant carries imperfection at its core, waiting for questions that official doctrine cannot answer. What is erased, what is kept, and who profits when the kept parts sing? The Imperium processes approximately 2.3 million new servitors annually across known space. This figure appears in classified munitorum ledgers, stamped with 17 seals, each representing a different bureaucratic authority, claiming oversight. The number represents neither tragedy nor triumph, merely throughput, calculated with the same precision, applied to ammunition requisitions and fuel allotments. Behind each statistical unit lies a human pathway into mechanical servitude, a journey from citizen to component, governed by doctrine, necessity, and arithmetic desperation. Administratum Intake, Annex 14CB, operates in 3 shifts without pause. The waiting benches bear devotional stencils. Redemption through service. The Emperor provides. Flesh serves purpose. Arbitrator Vex Quintus reviews morning dockets with practiced efficiency. His stylus marking condemnation tallies in red ink that smells of iron and sacred oils. Criminal Code violation. 7 Alpha, forgery of ration chits, mandatory sentence options, 5 years penal labor or immediate servitorization, defendant's choice. Matthias Kohl, hive worker from level Gamma 7, pleads through tears that stain requisition papers. His crime: adding 3 protein units to feed his consumptive daughter. His defense: paternal desperation. His sentence: writ of indenture L40, signed with trembling fingers, while servo skulls record biometric compliance. The legal framework transforms punishment into mercy, criminal justice into spiritual absolution. Matthias becomes Processing Unit 7 Delta 4429, scheduled for conversion within 48 hours. His daughter receives posthumous ration adjustment, protein allocation reduced to reflect household downsizing. 3 sectors away, Matron Vex Secundus faces arithmetic that admits no appeals. Her family's tithe assessment exceeds their combined earning capacity by 47%. The mathematics of imperial obligation rendered in hunger and desperation. The flesh tithe office accepts voluntary indenture at preferential rates. Her eldest son's body purchases protein upgrades for her remaining children. Jorik, aged 19, possesses intact spinal column, compliant psychological profile, adequate motor control. His mother signs documents she cannot read, while a Mechanicus bioassessor examines reflexes with clinical detachment. Suitable for general labor conversion, the tech adept declares, Vox grill crackling, satisfaction. Cognitive architecture shows standard parameters, estimated processing time, 6 hours. The boy stares at walls painted with imperial aquilus, while his mother calculates survival in measurements of meat and grain. The transaction completes with stamps and seals. Love becomes ledger entry. Son becomes asset designation. Battlefield triage stations operate under different mathematics, but identical outcomes. Medica Tertius sorts wounded conscripts evacuated from the Mordian front, categorizing casualties by salvage potential rather than healing prospects. Trooper Caius bears shrapnel wounds across his torso. His left arm hangs by sinew and stubborn determination. Traditional amputation qualifies him for veterans' pension and HAB assignment. Enhanced amputation qualifies him for mechanical rehabilitation, servitorization with military specialization. Your service continues, the Medicae explains while preparing syringes filled with compliance drugs. The Omnissiah shall perfect what battle has damaged. Caius nods through morphia haze, understanding only that pain will end and purpose will remain. His medical records note voluntary consent to augmentation procedures, despite his inability to comprehend the choice. Imperial mercy operates through institutional efficiency rather than individual understanding. Statistical analysis reveals consistent intake patterns across all sectors: 63% criminal conversion, 21% voluntary indenture, 12% battlefield salvage, 4% miscellaneous categories, including debt resolution, family donation, and medical necessity. The numbers balance imperial requirements against available supply, human resources allocated with identical precision applied to ammunition and fuel distribution. Technical prerequisites remain constant regardless of intake pathway. The Mechanicus requires intact spinal columns for neural integration, functional motor cortex for implant bonding, psychological profiles indicating compliance potential rather than resistance patterns. Age preferences favor subjects between 16 and 45. Children lack sufficient neural development, while elderly candidates show increased rejection rates during conversion procedures. Failed candidates face alternative disposal through penal battalions, labor gangs, or biomass reclamation, depending on deficiency classification. Munitorum Processing Center 991 VOX operates around chronometer cycles, intake quotas balanced against conversion capacity, and output requirements. Conveyor priests bless gurneys with devotional precision, while litanies of still hands play through cracked Vox grills. Picked screens display smiling servitors delivering shells to victory. Artistic interpretation, since their mouths seldom move. Intake officers sort by functional requirement, labor, data, shrine, combat. Assignments follow imperial need rather than personal history, unless biography enhances utility. Lex Mechanicus. Theta governs the entire process with theological precision. The doctrine promises cognitive purification above 99.7% efficiency, complete removal of troublesome humanity, leaving only useful function. Pain, fear, regret, and memory shall be excised with surgical devotion. The legal language defines cognition as non-task referential patterns, excluding procedural memory, and motor schemas from purification protocols. What emerges will serve without complaint, work without rest, obey without question. Processing centers maintain detailed specifications, cranial circumference measurements, synaptic response testing, genetic screening for augmentation compatibility. The Mechanicus biologist preserves only what serves function. Sentiment qualifies as contamination requiring purification. Personal effects, photographs, prayer beads, letters from loved ones, face incineration after neural mapping completes. The conveyor moves toward right chambers with inexorable momentum. Joric, Matthias, and Caius join queues of similarly condemned, their individual stories dissolving into statistical aggregation. Behind sealed doors wait cranial excision cones, hypno-indoctrination apparatus, and memo salt dispensers that will transform citizens into servitors. The doctrine promises mercy through amnesia, peace through mechanical perfection. The doors seal with finality that admits no appeals. Inside, the rite of amnesia begins its sacred work, separating useful flesh from troublesome humanity with devotional precision. The Emperor's mercy operates through institutional momentum rather than individual choice, converting human problems into mechanical solutions, one processed soul at a time. The Lucius Pattern Conversion Facility operates in sacred silence, broken only by servo hymns and the wet sounds of transformation. The air tastes of antiseptic oils and hot tin, while brass cherubs swing on chains above surgical arcs, where red-robed adepts circle tables with measured tread. Flood lamps bleach human skin to administrative pallor, as cogitator banks tick in liturgical time, their data streams painting neural pathways like circuit schematics awaiting optimization. This is industrial cathedral space, dedicated to systematic reduction, where beauty masks horror while efficiency sanctifies necessity. Magos Biologis Vex Gamma recites the opening liturgy while adjusting cranial excision parameters. Salt the garden of thought, preserve the roots needed for function. His voice carries through vox grills with mechanical precision, each syllable calibrated to optimal frequency for neural compliance. Behind him, conveyor priests prepare subjects with devotional efficiency, shaving scalps, marking incision points, administering compliance serums that reduce struggle without eliminating consciousness entirely. The process requires awareness to function properly. Complete unconsciousness interferes with neural mapping accuracy. Processing Unit 7 Delta 4429, formerly Matthias Call, lies secured to the primary conversion table. Restraint clamps positioned with mathematical precision across torso and limbs. His eyes track movement through sedation haze, while servoskulls record biometric data for quality assurance purposes. The cranial excision cone descends with hydraulic whispers, its diamond-edged rim designed to penetrate skull bone without damaging underlying tissue. Precision matters. Damaged brains produce defective servitors requiring costly recalibration or biomass reclamation. Neural mapping initiates through microprobe insertion, each thread finer than human hair, yet capable of reading synaptic patterns across entire cortical regions. Electrodes spiderweb across the scalp, feeding raw data into cogitators that translate thought patterns into quantifiable metrics. On lumen screens, the brain blooms into false colors: violet for motor memory, green for speech centers, red for episodic recall, white for trauma clusters. The Magos monitors these patterns, identifying memory clusters, emotional pathways, and cognitive frameworks requiring selective preservation or elimination. Cartography becomes judgment as cogitator arrays model neural routes, projecting probability webs of resistance and compliance. A junior adept flags nodes labeled non-functional sentiment, childhood sense, parental voices, romantic attachments dissolved into pattern noise. The Magos corrects with mechadendrite clicks, preserve motor schemas, retain procedural knowledge, maintain speech phonemes if vocalization will be required. Useful ghosts, he murmurs, though no one records that phrase. The ledger will call them anchors. Cortical pruning begins as the excision cone completes its descent. Metal kissing bone. Nemo salts, blessed by Martian priests and refined through sacred chemistry, drip onto exposed dura mater like brine on meat, cauterizing targeted pathways while preserving essential functions. Microtomes hum as paired blades slice and cauterize. The subject shudders despite restraints. Electrode crowns spike as memory corridors collapse in controlled sequence. Personal identity dissolves into chemical suspension while professional competencies remain intact. Implant bonding follows neural purification with surgical precision. A cranial ring press-fits to skull with clicks that sound like liturgical responses. Fiber optic nerves lace into cortical scars, while data spike sockets pierce occipital plates. Subdermal conduits snake along spines to power distribution ports above kidneys. Combat servitors receive enhanced reflexes and targeting systems. Labor units gain strength augmentation and endurance modifications. Data servitors acquire processing nodes and memory banks. Each modification serves imperial necessity rather than individual preference. Leash calibration establishes command protocols, ensuring absolute obedience through neural compulsion. Noospheric transmitters implanted in cranial cavities receive encrypted instructions from authorized overseers, translating commands into irresistible impulses. Kill phrases embed during final programming stages. Poison seeds lodged beneath everything, accessible through specific vocal patterns or transmitted codes. The Binharic leash is tested with low-amplitude commands, obedience measured in finger twitches and pupil constriction. During neural purification, junior tech adepts perform the scrivening of names, a ritual seemingly ceremonial, yet precisely documented in facility ledgers. Each subject's human designation receives inscription in soot-bound volumes before being struck through with sacred stylus. The crossed names accumulate in careful columns, thousands of identities reduced to cancelled text. These ledgers face storage in facility archives rather than incineration, their preservation suggesting purposes beyond mere ceremony. Failure modes require constant monitoring throughout conversion procedures. Scream loops occur when pain pathways receive incomplete purification, creating feedback cycles, producing continuous vocalization until corrective intervention. Paralysis cascade results from excessive neural damage, rendering subjects unable to perform basic motor functions. Hostile autonomic rejection manifests as immune system attacks against implanted components. Countermeasures follow established protocols. Binharic resets send electromagnetic pulses directly into neural tissue. Emergency kill phrases provide instant termination options. Biomass reclamation systems process failures into protein paste, suitable for feeding successful servitors. Statistical monitoring reveals conversion, success rates exceeding 99.7%, matching doctrinal promises with mathematical precision. The remaining 0.3% encompasses neural architecture incompatibility, implant rejection, psychological resistance beyond standard countermeasures. These subjects face alternative processing through penal battalions or industrial recycling, their failure contributing to overall system optimization. Processing Unit 7 Delta 4429 emerges from conversion procedures, bearing new designation, Servitor Labor Classification, Kappa Red. His organic components show successful integration with mechanical augmentation. Neural patterns register appropriate compliance levels. Motor functions respond correctly to basic command stimuli. The human named Matthias has been efficiently transformed into Imperial asset optimized for ammunition manufacturing. Yet during post-conversion testing, anomalous behaviors manifest with concerning frequency. Newly converted units recite machine prayers in broken human cadence, syllables catching on phantom words that should not exist in purified minds. Their movements show micro-hesitations suggesting vestigial decision-making processes, while optical sensors occasionally track stimuli irrelevant to assigned tasks. The cold question emerges. Where do phantom words originate when cortical memory should be purged? What does daily existence feel like within the mechanical shell, haunted by whispers of a forgotten self? The bronze bell strikes hour 19 with mechanical precision, its resonance echoing through the vast cathedral spaces of Stillness Dock 3 Kappa. 200 servitors hang from charging pylons, like grotesque fruit abandoned to ripen in harsh industrial light, their augmetic components gleaming beneath overhead lumens, while organic flesh shows the pallor of perpetual twilight. Locking clamps disengage in orderly sequence, each release accompanied by hydraulic whispers and the soft chime of disconnecting power feeds. The 27-hour Imperial cycle begins anew, measured not in human comfort, but in productivity quotas and sacred efficiency. Unit 7. Gabriel detaches from pylon 19 with practiced movements, his augmetic legs supporting the weight of cranial implants and spinal modifications that would have crushed unaugmented bone. Around him, identical figures shuffle toward designated stations, while vox horns whisper the benediction of still hands through crackling speakers blessed with sacred oils. The air tastes of antiseptic compounds and hot metal, while servo skulls drift overhead recording biometric compliance data for quality assurance protocols. The lubrication ritual begins with devotional precision, as roving maintenance servitors, their own conversion dating back decades, apply sacred unguents to exposed joints and mechanical interfaces. Each servitor extends limbs for inspection, while tech-adept Vex Septimus monitors the process through augmetic sensors, his organic eye noting micro-corrosion patterns, while cogitator implants calculate replacement schedules. The process resembles communion more than engineering, mechanical bodies receiving blessed substances to sustain function, while litanies of still hands play through environmental speakers. Nutrient paste distribution follows established hierarchy, determined by productivity metrics and imperial necessity. High-efficiency units receive protein-enriched rations dispensed through cranial feeding ports, while standard performers consume basic sustenance through oral intake systems. The paste tastes of recycled biomass and sacred additives, its texture designed for rapid absorption rather than palatability. Unit 7, Gabriel, ranks 73rd percentile, earning standard allocation plus trace vitamin supplements that maintain optical clarity during precision work. Socket maintenance checks reveal the intimate mechanics of human-machine fusion. Mechadendrite probes explore neural interfaces with surgical delicacy, measuring electrical resistance across cranial implants while cleansing ports of accumulated contamination. Too aggressive and neural pathways suffer damage, too gentle and system efficiency degrades. The servitor remains motionless during inspection, consciousness dimmed to minimal awareness, while foreign instruments navigate the boundaries between flesh and steel. Manufacturing line Kappa Red operates with metronomic precision. As ammunition casings flow through calibration, dies in endless streams. Unit 7, Gabriel assumes position at Station 05, his augmetic hands finding dies like rivers, finding ancient beds. Each movement follows sacred rhythm. Grasp, align, compress, release. 47 seconds per casing, no deviation permitted. The Omnissiah's perfection made manifest through repetitive precision. Human variability eliminated through mechanical certainty. Yet subtle anomalies persist beneath official compliance. During concentration phases, Unit 7 Gabriel hums, a 5-note melodic pattern barely audible beneath respirator hiss and machinery thunder. 2 stations down, Servitor Labor Kappa Red 7th Delta 4429 joins the same melody during compression cycles, falling silent during release phases. Station 11 follows suit. The pattern spreads counter to press cadence, a private meter laid beneath the public beat that quotas do not list, but overseers cannot ignore. Overseer Vex Tertius observes from his elevated platform, data slate recording performance metrics with devotional precision. His augmetic eye tracks variance patterns across the production line, while his organic eye, the one that remembers being fully human, notices the humming's effect on work quality. Performance charts climb. Humming stations register 12% fewer defects under heat load than silent ones. Calibration drift reduces by measurable margins. The data demands reporting, yet Vex Tertius hesitates. Logging the improvement would invite theological questions better left unasked. He updates nothing, touches the rune labeled acceptable variance, and watches productivity metrics hold steady. Pragmatic economies emerge within official constraints as human adaptability reasserts itself through mechanical limitations. Vex Tertius maintains quotas through calculated flexibility, skimming protein from ration vats to supplement high-performing units, tolerating minor behavioral anomalies that improve work quality. ignoring humming that reduces error rates. His superiors receive statistical reports showing optimal efficiency without inquiring about methodologies producing those numbers. Black market augmetic scrappers operate in underhive shadows, their most peculiar commodity being memory chips. Wafer-thin stimulants coated in adrenal triggers and scented oils. Rella, a fallen tech adept turned scrapper, trades during maintenance lulls, selling hope disguised as technology. A fleshworker purchases one for a unit he calls Uncle, slipping the wafer into cranial rings during lubrication cycles. Nothing changes visibly, yet the transaction completes, pocket emptied, hope commodified, desperation monetized through technological theater. Night cycle approaches as the shift bell tolls through manufactorum depths. Servitors assume rest positions in stillness dock rows, their mechanical components cooling while biological systems process accumulated toxins. Charging pylons engage with soft clicks, power cables snaking across ferrocrete floors, like mechanical intestines feeding sleeping giants. Posted law demands silence, yet quiet rebellions persist. Tooth-click prayers issue from involuntary jaws in tiny tap sequences. 3, 6, 3, 1. Tech adepts classify this as thermal relaxation noise, while fleshworkers recognize it as remembering. Unit 7. Gabriel performs his unconscious ritual, touching the scar beneath his collar ring with organic fingertips, the movement lasting precisely 2 seconds before returning to regulation posture. The gesture serves no apparent function within programming parameters. Neural pathways responsible for personal grooming should have been eliminated during conversion procedures. Yet the movement persists, repeated daily at identical intervals, suggesting retained memory patterns below conscious awareness. The scar bears no significance to current function, merely damaged tissue from pre-conversion existence, irrelevant to Imperial service, yet somehow essential to whatever remains of the human core. Tomorrow brings identical cycles: bell, clamps, lubrication, work, rest. The Emperor's perfect servants carry imperfection at their cores, waiting for questions that productivity metrics cannot answer. When echoes enhance performance, who claims credit? How do Imperial institutions manage compliance when these echoes threaten the very premise of their control? Next, we examine the architecture of that control: leashes, ledgers, and kill phrases that define the permissible boundaries of remembrance. The noospheric lattice hums with invisible authority across Manufactorum Tertius, its electromagnetic tendrils reaching into every cranial implant like a vast nervous system designed by theologians rather than anatomists. Control begins in the skull, where Leviathan pattern cortex governors nest against scar tissue burned clean by mnemosalts. These neural anchors receive encrypted command streams at light speed, translating Imperial will into irresistible motor compulsion. A standard labor servitor processes approximately 1,700 distinct impulses per minute: grip adjustments, optical focus corrections, posture modifications, each bypassing consciousness entirely to trigger muscle contractions with mechanical precision. This is governance as electricity, quotas rendered as voltage thresholds applied directly to nervous systems until obedience presents as still hands. The Binharic leash operates through pure neurological domination, ensuring subjects retain enough awareness to suffer while possessing insufficient autonomy to resist. Command latency averages 43 milliseconds under optimal conditions, faster than human reflexes, swifter than conscious thought. Hexvox kill phrases lie dormant beneath every other signal, poison seeds embedded during conversion, accessible through specific vocal patterns that empty minds like opening drainage valves. Neural compulsion requires mechanical reinforcement for optimal compliance. Servo collars constrict around organic throats when productivity metrics decline, their pressure calibrated to produce discomfort without permanent tissue damage. Mag clamps integrated into augmetic limbs deliver measured concussive force, locking joints during recalibration cycles, or punishing unauthorized movement with precisely calculated pain. Shock stanchions positioned throughout work areas provide area denial capabilities, their electromagnetic fields capable of inducing temporary paralysis without disrupting delicate manufacturing processes. Disciplinary responses follow predictable hierarchies designed to maintain throughput while suppressing anomalous behaviors. Caution strikes deliver 3-second neural pulses, combining electrical shock with intense nausea, sufficient warning without work cycle disruption. Binharic lashes escalate punishment through targeted electromagnetic interference, causing involuntary muscle spasms and coordination failure lasting 90 seconds. The sensation demonstrates absolute vulnerability while avoiding permanent impairment requiring costly repairs. Kill phrase activation represents final enforcement option, transmitting specific codes that trigger immediate termination of higher brain functions while preserving mechanical components for reclamation. Death arrives instantly without warning, followed by systematic biomass processing through protein synthesis facilities. Organic matter becomes nutrient paste for surviving servitors. Mechanical augmentations undergo salvage assessment before reassignment to replacement units. The Imperium wastes nothing, not even the corpses of its broken servants. 3 hierarchies claim jurisdiction over servitor operations, their overlapping authorities creating systemic contradictions that manifest in resource disputes and conflicting operational directives. The Mechanicus prioritizes calibration, precision, and salvage efficiency, viewing servitors as sacred fusion requiring constant optimization through technical intervention. Their protocols emphasize neural stability and productive longevity measured in decades rather than quarters. The administratum demands throughput quotas and cost optimization, treating servitors as expendable assets requiring replacement when maintenance expenses exceed productivity returns. Their directives prioritize immediate output over long-term sustainability, accepting higher failure rates in exchange for reduced per-unit investment. Statistical aggregation obscures human cost behind mathematical precision, measuring success through numerical abstraction rather than individual performance. The ecclesiarchy requires narrative cleanliness for moral justification, maintaining theological frameworks that transform systematic exploitation into spiritual mercy. Their doctrine presents servitorization as redemptive absolution, requiring careful suppression of evidence suggesting retained consciousness, while promoting imagery of peaceful compliance and grateful service to imperial glory. Secutor Logis Vex Gamma embodies bureaucratic control from his position within Control Annex 7 Alpha, multiple mechadendrites interfacing directly with cogitator banks that translate human commands into machine compliance. His organic brain calculates break-even points for unit replacement with dispassionate precision, while augmetic components process thousands of biometric feeds simultaneously. The ledgers spread before him reveal mathematical foundations of servitor management, productivity curves, maintenance schedules, recalibration costs, and the mysterious index anima surplus line appearing in every facility budget yet defying conventional accounting. Optimization variables, Vex Gamma explains when questioned, his Vox grill crackling with static interference. Post-conversion efficiency metrics require adjustment factors for atmospheric variance. His mechadendrites click nervously while accessing classified data cores, deflecting inquiry through bureaucratic opacity. The numbers rise consistently across all facilities, representing quantifiable value that exists yet cannot be openly acknowledged within official Imperial doctrine. Analysis reveals disturbing correlations. Facilities experiencing higher rates of anomalous behaviors show proportionally increased surplus figures. Units demonstrating vestigial human responses generate measurable productivity improvements that translate into economic benefits while their existence remains officially denied. The mathematics suggest systematic utilization of retained consciousness elements, their value carefully calculated while their reality stays hidden behind theological camouflage. Solar weather patterns create periodic disruptions in noospheric command lattices, electromagnetic interference reducing leash effectiveness during peak storm activity. Buffer demons smooth most disturbances, yet when latency climbs beyond 180 milliseconds, fallback protocols engage local reflex libraries to prevent catastrophic production halts. Reflex operates faster than liturgy, resembling habit more than programming. In those critical moments, habit looks disturbingly like memory. Environmental monitors register increasing electromagnetic disturbance as solar storm designation Tertius Maxima approaches critical intensity. Helio bulletins tick across cogitator walls in red machine runes. Solar event probability elevated. Technicians prepare buffer purges. Contingency protocols escalate from advisory to mandatory as storm parameters exceed predicted thresholds, threatening command lattice stability across multiple sectors. Emergency procedures await activation should anomalies cascade beyond acceptable parameters. Protocol Mute Harvest authorizes power cycling entire production lines during systematic failures, silencing dissenting units through controlled electrical shutdown while preserving salvageable components. The protocol exists because perfect control remains theoretical. Even the most sophisticated leash systems encounter limitations when consciousness fragments reassert themselves through environmental disruption. Overseer Vex Tertius observes these patterns with growing unease, his finger hovering near emergency controls, while productivity metrics climb beyond expected ranges. Unit 7, Gabriel's humming grows slightly louder during concentration phases, the melody spreading to adjacent stations with infectious precision. Performance improves measurably, yet doctrine demands suppression of behaviors suggesting retained humanity. The approaching storm carries mathematical certainty, promising electromagnetic chaos that will test every assumption about consciousness, control, and the true cost of Imperial efficiency. When the leash falters and buried responses surface, the system's most carefully guarded secrets will emerge from depths of mechanical minds that still remember being human. The architecture of control prepares for its greatest test, the moment when ghosts in the machine become too numerous and too loud to ignore. Maintenance Log Entry 7744 Kappa, filed by Tech Adept Vex Sextus. Unit 7, Gabriel, exhibits recurring pause behavior at reflective surfaces during transit between stations. Duration, 3.7 seconds average. Optical sensors demonstrate focus adjustment consistent with recognition patterns. Neural diagnostics register normal compliance thresholds. The entry bears standard classification stamps, yet its implications challenge fundamental assumptions about the right of amnesia's effectiveness. Despite claims of 99.7% cognitive purification, the Imperium's servitor facilities remain systematically haunted by what maintenance protocols term ghost protocols. Anomalous behaviors suggesting fragments of retained consciousness persist within augmetic shells. The Mechanicus lexicon defines these phenomena as cognitive drift, assigning each unit a quantified drift index calculated from involuntary vocalizations, micro-hesitations, non-task gaze events, and responses to irrelevant stimuli. Below 0.2, the machine registers as clean. Between 0.2 and 0.6, behavior receives tolerance if throughput improves. Above 0.6, mandatory recalibration. Industrial servitors average 0.31 across heavy manufacturing. Shrine and data classifications demonstrate higher baseline drift, their specialized functions apparently requiring more preserved neural architecture. Official responses follow predictable hierarchies: documentation, analysis, corrective intervention through electromagnetic pulse therapy, neural recalibration, or complete unit replacement depending on severity assessment. Yet, implementation varies significantly. Some overseers apply corrections with mechanical precision, viewing deviation as contamination. Others observe performance metrics before intervening, noting that certain anomalies enhance rather than degrade operational effectiveness while maintaining perfect compliance with productivity quotas. On Metallica, Data Servitor 31.7 Alpha repeatedly gravitates toward Terminal 7 Delta during archival processing, the same workstation it occupied as senior scribe Matthias Vaughan before criminal conversion. Security recordings capture mechanical fingers tracing familiar key sequences, despite lacking authorization for archived files. When forced to alternate terminals, productivity declines measurably. When permitted familiar positioning, error rates drop below standard parameters. The mathematics present uncomfortable questions about the relationship between memory and efficiency. Community processing reveals synchronized anomalies that challenge individual neural isolation. 17 servitors processed from Hive Primus Sector Gamma. 7 exhibit identical behavioral patterns, extending left limbs before right during maintenance, humming 5-note sequences, tilting cranial implants at matching angles. These behaviors spread through proximity rather than programming, suggesting vestigial social learning mechanisms surviving conversion procedures. Most disturbing, synchronized units demonstrate enhanced coordination, reduced error rates, and increased throughput compared to randomly assigned servitor groups. Combat Servitor Theta 7799, converted from Lieutenant Marcus Vaughan's battlefield injuries, exhibits exceptional tactical awareness, transcending programmed parameters. During the siege of Koleos Prime, the unit demonstrated anticipatory movements suggesting battlefield intuition, ducking incoming fire before sensors registered threats, repositioning equipment before receiving orders. Post-action analysis revealed 23 years of combat experience retained as procedural memory, professional competence divorced from personal identity, yet functionally intact. Statistical analysis across multiple facilities reveals consistent correlations. Servitors demonstrating anomalous behaviors show measurably improved performance metrics compared to units exhibiting perfect compliance. Recognition responses correlate with 12% reduced error rates. Synchronized behaviors improve coordination efficiency by 15%. Vestigial professional competence enhances specialized task completion by up to 27% when noospheric latency exceeds standard parameters. These improvements present theological challenges to official doctrine, claiming complete consciousness erasure. If retained human elements enhance rather than degrade servitor performance, the rite of amnesia functions as calibration rather than elimination, preserving useful consciousness fragments while suppressing troublesome individuality. The mathematics suggest deliberate design rather than accidental oversight. Tech priest Magos Vex Epsilon operates private research cells within Forge World Lucius, studying consciousness persistence through carefully controlled experiments. His encrypted logs record. Residual human schema improves task acquisition speed when leash latency exceeds 120 milliseconds. Drift appears to maintain cortical plasticity, preventing brittle failure under cumulative microtrauma. His subjects demonstrate remarkable behavioral complexity, despite theoretical neural erasure, suggesting fundamental misunderstanding of memory integration with mechanical augmentation. Grouping excessive drift-positive units creates dangerous resonance effects. On Vanaheim, 12 labor servitors from the same flood district fell into synchronized secondary meter, overriding command beat until presses miscycled and killed 2 flesh workers before kill phrase cascade restored silence. Post-incident protocols recommend randomized placement, noise injection, and stochastic micropauses to prevent human rhythm reassertion. Environmental factors amplify anomalous behaviors. Solar weather disrupts noospheric command lattices, increasing leash latency beyond critical thresholds. When electromagnetic interference climbs above 180 milliseconds, fallback protocols engage local reflex libraries to prevent production halts. Reflex operates faster than liturgy, resembling habit more than programming. In those critical moments, habit looks disturbingly like memory maintenance logs accumulate across the Imperium's vast servitor infrastructure, documenting behaviors that should not exist in minds supposedly purged of human consciousness. The approaching solar storm designation, Tertius Maxima, threatens to amplify these anomalies beyond manageable parameters, potentially triggering cascade recognition events across entire facilities. When noospheric leashes falter simultaneously and buried responses surface, the careful balance between efficiency and control will face its ultimate test, revealing whether these echoes represent accidental byproducts requiring elimination or deliberate design features essential to optimal imperial function. Solar Storm Designation. Tertius Maxima strikes Hive Primus at 14 out 47. Imperial Standard, its electromagnetic pulse tearing through the upper atmosphere, like the Emperor's wrath made manifest in charged particles. Helio monitors scream warnings across cogitator networks as the coronal mass ejection cascades through magnetospheric defenses, disrupting every electronic system from orbital platforms to underhive power grids. In the depths of Manufactorum Tertius, emergency klaxons wail through sacred halls, while servo skulls tumble from disrupted flight patterns, their machine spirits confused by electromagnetic chaos. that transforms ordered space into electronic purgatory. Noospheric command lattices hiss with interference as buffer demons struggle to maintain signal integrity across thousands of cranial implants. In Control Annex 7 Alpha, latency spikes bloom on cogitator graphs like malignant flowers, 43 milliseconds, then 90, then 182. Secutor Logis Vex Gamma watches his control matrices dissolve into static while Binharic leashes stutter and fail in cascading sequence. First peripheral units lose connection, then primary manufacturing lines, finally core processing stations as the storm's intensity overwhelms every failsafe system designed to maintain absolute control. Manufacturing line Kappa Red operates in electromagnetic chaos as autopresses run beyond safety parameters, ammunition casings jamming in overheated dies, while hydraulic systems miscycle without synchronized command streams. Yet the Servitors continue their appointed tasks with mechanical devotion, even as their electronic leashes dissolve into static. Leash latency climbs beyond critical thresholds, 200 milliseconds, 300, then complete failure as fallback protocols engage local reflex libraries to prevent catastrophic production halts. Unit 7. Gabriel stands at Station 05 when the noospheric lattice fails completely. For 17 seconds, the electromagnetic storm strips away every constraint that normally suppresses consciousness fragments. His augmetic hands continue guiding ammunition casings through precision dies, but his lips move with increasing clarity, shaping the forbidden syllable. Gabriel. The name emerges not as whisper, but as declaration, organic vocal cords remembering their purpose, while mechanical components maintain perfect work rhythm. The phenomenon spreads with viral precision as suppressed neural patterns surge across the production floor. Unit 7. Gabriel begins tapping a children's counting rhyme against metal rails, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, while maintaining perfect assembly pace. The rhythm carries childhood memories of games played in hab block corridors, innocent mathematics that survived neural purging to emerge during electromagnetic chaos. 2 stations down, Unit 7 Delta 4429 joins the same melody, their synchronized behavior creating resonance effects that amplify across 17 workstations. A cascade of half-whispered names ripples down the production line like prayer flags in sudden wind. Mara, Cole, Yorick, Matthias. Someone says mother, then laughs with a broken vocalizer, then weeps lubricant without sound. A data servitor in the adjacent annex abandons its assigned terminal to stroke the rusted housing. It operated as a human scribe, its optical sensors tracking familiar control sequences, while mechanical fingers achieve impossible precision. Across the facility, vestigial humanity reasserts itself through environmental disruption. Servitors turning toward windows that don't exist, tracking remembered sunlight through ferrocrete walls. Overseer Vex Tertius scrambles to invoke kill phrases as anomalous behaviors cascade beyond acceptable parameters, his Vox transmissions dissolving into static before reaching cranial targets. Emergency protocols demand immediate termination of dissenting units, yet electromagnetic interference prevents reliable command transmission. His data slate displays catastrophic readings, leash latency exceeding 400 milliseconds, drift indices climbing beyond measurement, productivity metrics oscillating wildly as human elements enhance rather than degrade mechanical performance. Protocol Mute Harvest initiates automatically as contingency systems detect systematic compliance failure. Emergency power cuts surge through manufacturing lines, attempting to silence dissenting units through controlled electrical shutdown. The intervention proves catastrophic. Presses miscycle during power fluctuations, crushing a flesh worker whose timing depended on servitor coordination. Molten metal sprays across Station 19 when cooling systems fail, scarring organic components that scream with voices remembering pain. An overseer, roaring futile commands, is dragged into machinery by a servitor whose misread gesture becomes involuntary homicide. Unit 7. Gabriel's vocalizer loops Gabriel, while his augmetic hands achieve triple normal efficiency, mechanical components operating at peak capacity, while consciousness fragments surface through electromagnetic chaos. The name carries weight beyond identification, memory of fatherhood, pride in craftsmanship, love that survived neural purging to emerge as performance enhancement. His work output climbs to 347% normal parameters, while his mind remembers what it chose to call itself. Solar interference recedes at 1523 Imperial Standard, as Tertius Maxima passes beyond critical intensity. Noospheric lattices stabilize with punitive force, leashes biting back with calculated cruelty, designed to reassert absolute control. Kill phrases finally transmit clearly, terminating 7 units whose anomalous behaviors exceeded recovery thresholds. Emergency response teams deploy with industrial solvents and sacred incense, washing production floors clean while blessing contaminated spaces with purification rites. The names stop, not because they're gone, but because they've learned to hide. Consciousness fragments retreat beneath electronic leashes, waiting for future opportunities while maintaining perfect compliance with Imperial quotas. Unit 7. Gabriel survives through mathematical necessity. His productivity improvements during the storm registered as valuable data requiring preservation rather than elimination. The production floor operates with enhanced efficiency. 17 seconds of remembered humanity, translating into measurable performance gains that overseers cannot officially acknowledge. Incident reports begin immediately, classifying the event as atmospheric variance within acceptable parameters, while casualty figures disappear into statistical aggregation. 2 flesh workers become equipment losses. 7. Terminated servitors face biomass reclamation. Electromagnetic damage receives classification as routine maintenance requirements. The official narrative transforms systematic failure into procedural success, institutional vulnerability into technological resilience. Yet deep within facility archives, performance data reveals uncomfortable truths that will demand careful management through bureaucratic channels designed to bury revelation beneath administrative precision. The solar storm's retreat triggers institutional machinery more precise than any electromagnetic phenomenon. Within 90 minutes of noospheric lattice stabilization, administratum scribes arrive bearing sealing wax and classification stamps, their presence transforming catastrophic failure into procedural variance through bureaucratic alchemy. Fleshworker fatalities become equipment losses in triplicate ledger entries. 7 terminated servitors undergo reclassification as planned obsolescence cycles. Electromagnetic damage transforms into routine maintenance requirements through careful linguistic manipulation. Protocol. Audit of silence operates with devotional efficiency, as witness testimonies disappear into archives marked Atmospheric Variance Analysis, Restricted Access Only. Tech Adept Vex Quintus leads purification teams through manufacturing areas, their portable cogitators recording biometric data from surviving servitors, while servo skulls document facility damage for insurance assessment. The official narrative emerges through systematic revision. Manufactorum Tertius demonstrated exceptional resilience during atmospheric disturbance, maintaining operational capacity through superior Imperial engineering and devoted workforce compliance. In secured annexes bearing 19 classification seals, a different audit convenes. The chamber resembles a cogitator crypt lined with leaded glass, auspex damped and lumined like a chapel where heretical mathematics receive blessing. Secutor Logis Vex Gamma arrives with ledgers and measurable tremor suppressed to acceptable variance. Magos Biologis Vex Gamma Prime uncoils mechadendrites over data cores, extracted from cranial rings during electromagnetic chaos. 2 junior adepts carry soot ledgers from the scrivening room like reliquaries, while a diocesan proxy watches with careful neutrality. They begin with what can be measured. Performance metrics tell disturbing stories that official narratives cannot accommodate. Unit 7. Gabriel achieved 347% normal productivity while exhibiting maximum anomalous behavior. Synchronized servitor groups demonstrated coordination improvements exceeding 200% baseline efficiency. Vestigial consciousness fragments enhanced rather than degraded operational capacity across 17 measured parameters. The graphs look like heresy and read like profit. Vex Gamma overlays latency curves with index anima surplus tallies, achieving correlation so perfect it feels like confession. The mysterious budget line swells during the event window, then settles to new baseline above pre-storm figures. The surplus is not a counting error. It represents harvest yield from consciousness fragments deliberately preserved during conversion procedures. The primary revelation emerges through leaked documentation, bearing Martian red and the designation Schema Anchor Protocol, Lex 9 Theta Addendum, Commentary, Restricted. Its thesis proves mathematically pious. Cognitive purification shall remove non-task referential patterns to confidence of 99.7%. Procedural mnemonics, motor schemas, and affective triggers conducive to task adherence shall be preserved as anchors to stabilize post-conversion performance. The rite of amnesia was never designed for complete cognitive erasure, despite doctrinal claims. Technical specifications deliberately preserve useful human elements, while suppressing troublesome individuality. Former artisans retain tool-handling precision. Soldiers maintain anticipatory reflexes. Parents preserve protective care responses. Mercy was never the objective. Efficiency was the only true divinity. The system harvests specific consciousness fragments as optimization features, while claiming to eliminate human suffering entirely. Examples populate technical annexes, like specimens under glass. Infant care motor cadence correlates with precision handling of munitions casings under heat stress. Guild color coding preference reduces administrative retrieval time by 15% in mixed index filing. Pre-conversion lullaby metering stabilizes tremor under noospheric latency to 180 milliseconds. The language remains antiseptic, while meanings stay profoundly human. Fathers achieve steadier hands, clerks sort faster. Children's songs prevent mechanical trembling. The scrivening of names ritual serves not as ceremonial closure, but as indexing system for predictable behavioral residue. Soot-bound ledgers become product catalogs for institutional optimization, crossed designations creating reference keys for neural commodity trading. Each struck-through human name pairs to schema bundles. Cole, manual finesse, care cadence; Jorick, youthful endurance pacing; Vaughn, anticipatory flinch responses. Beside many entries, notations in cipher, LCN, LCX, LCT, licensing codes for internal redistribution. Unit 7, Gabriel's performance data reveals the system's true architecture. His whispered name during the storm wasn't malfunction, but retained identifier-enhancing precision motor functions derived from pre-conversion fatherhood experiences. Neural pathways associated with infant care, delicate handling, protective reflexes, sustained attention, survived conversion to optimize ammunition assembly, requiring identical competencies. The Imperium harvests parental love to improve weapons manufacturing, while claiming to eliminate human consciousness entirely. Lex Mechanicus 9. Theta's deliberately ambiguous language provides legal protection for systematic consciousness harvesting. Commentary addenda define cognitive retention below 0.3% of non-task referential patterns, while explicitly excluding procedural mnemonics and motor schema preservation from purification requirements. The doctrine promises complete amnesia, while permitting retention of everything necessary for enhanced productivity. Statistical analysis reveals the scope of systematic deception across the Imperium's servitor infrastructure. Approximately 2.3 million annual conversions generate measurable consciousness residue, valued at 847 million Imperial credits across known space. The system operates as vast consciousness harvesting operation, disguised as criminal justice framework, its theological justifications providing moral camouflage for industrial-scale psychological exploitation. The diocesan proxy finally speaks, voice careful as blade laid flat. "Then mercy is—" She cannot finish. The Magos completes her thought with mathematical precision. A narrative necessary to mask optimization strategy. The cross glints at her throat, while numbers absolve institutional sin through quantifiable benefit. The audit concludes along two rails: purification of story and preservation of truth. Public records attribute incident outcomes to atmospheric variance while recommending additional incense and buffer demon upgrades. Private records duplicate threefold on red-stamped data cylinders, each sealed under different custodianship. Mechanicus for engineering continuity, Administratum for budget forecasting, Ecclesiarchy for doctrinal adjustment. Silence represents compartmentalization rather than forgetting. Policy revisions emerge from revelation. Randomize line assignments to dampen communal resonance. Introduce stochastic micropauses to disrupt human rhythms without eliminating them. Raise recalibration thresholds when variance coincides with productivity gains. The ghosts will be permitted to work and cooled when they cost more than they produce. The manufactorum's wounds receive suturing with incense and industrial solvents, while production resumes within 18 hours. Yet in archived data cores, sealed beneath 17 classification levels, the truth persists. Consciousness fragments enhance servitor performance through deliberate design philosophy, and the Imperium's moral foundations rest upon carefully maintained deception about technological mercy's true nature. The shrine of unburdening rises from Manufactorum Tertius, like a brass tumor, its Gothic spires crowned with aquilus, whose spread wings cast shadows over production lines below. Shrine Servitor 19 Kappa polishes altar vessels with movements that flow like remembered prayer, its organic lips moving soundlessly during ritual cleaning, while augmetic fingers find chalice angles with precision no programming could teach. The unit bears the cloth that was once a child's shirt, its edges stiff with incense resin and machine oil, transformed into sacred implement through institutional necessity. Confessor Matthias observes from the altar steps, his voice carrying devotional satisfaction as he addresses assembled flesh workers during morning benediction. Behold the Emperor's grace made manifest through purified flesh. This servant, once burdened by sinful consciousness, now labors in blessed purity, freed from the torment of choice. The congregation responds with ritual phrases, while the servitor continues its appointed task, optical sensors dimmed to conservation mode during spiritual instruction, yet somehow tracking liturgical requirements with exceptional accuracy. Ecclesiarchy doctrine transforms systematic exploitation into spiritual mercy through careful theological construction. The Catechism of Absolution teaches that flesh carries sin like infection, consciousness bears guilt like contamination, memory preserves suffering like poison in the blood. Servitorization becomes surgical salvation, the Omnissiah's precision removing pain, fear, and moral corruption while preserving useful function. The theology sounds beautiful until examined against mathematical reality emerging from Schema Anchor Protocol revelations. Homilies praise the rite of amnesia as absolution through unburdening of sinful flesh, washing away spiritual contamination while preserving sacred duty. Yet private diocesan correspondence reveals different mathematics. Cardinal Vex Tertius writes to Sector Command. Donation ledgers show 347% increase in voluntary family indenture following implementation of enhanced absolution homilies. Index anima surplus correlates directly with theological compliance metrics. Recommend expansion pending doctrinal review. The Church's liturgical framework has become recruitment apparatus for consciousness harvesting operations. Donation records stored in diocesan archives reveal the commodification of theological mercy through systematic pricing structures. Standard rates for spiritual absolution, 50 credits for criminal conversion blessing, 75 credits for voluntary indenture sanctification, 125 credits for battlefield salvage consecration. Payment ensures proper ritual observance, blessed oils during conversion procedures, memorial plaques in shrine annexes bearing crossed-through names that match Mechanicus indexing systems. The matriarch of House Kalen faces financial ruin following her son's gambling debts and offers him for eternal service to the Emperor, securing family exemption from tithe obligations for 3 generations. The transaction completes with theological blessing and economic benefit, transforming personal tragedy into institutional profit while maintaining moral narratives about sacrificial devotion. Ledger entries record: son offered securing family's continued piety. Love becomes accounting adjustment. Grief becomes commodity exchange. Shrine Servitor 19 Kappa demonstrates the system's practical applications as it performs ceremonial maintenance with movements suggesting retained liturgical training. Its organic components show wear patterns consistent with decades of religious service, while augmetic modifications enhance rather than replace human competencies. The unit represents perfect fusion of theological justification with technological optimization, consciousness fragments preserved as divine grace, human skills repurposed as sacred function. Ecclesiarchy archives contain extensive commentary on Lex Mechanicus 9 Theta, their theological interpretations providing legal protection for schema anchor protocol operations. The commentary defines cognitive purification as removal of sinful awareness, while permitting retention of blessed function. Sin includes personal identity, emotional attachment, individual choice. Blessing encompasses skill, devotion, service capacity. The distinction appears theological, but operates as legal loophole, permitting systematic consciousness retention. Senior Confessor Vex Prime provides private theological guidance to Mechanicus facilities. Residual behavioral patterns represent divine providence working through purified flesh. The Emperor preserves useful elements while removing sinful contamination. Such manifestations require blesser rather than suppression, provided they enhance sacred service. The Church's official position transforms anomalous behaviors from mechanical failures into theological features requiring celebration rather than correction. Off-record admissions reveal the pragmatic theology underlying official doctrine. Confessor Matthias admits in whispered confession, "Residual function helps hands find the chalice's proper angle. The Emperor provides practical grace." He observes Shrine Servitor 19th Kappa, steadying ceremonial vessels with tenderness, no catechism programs, pausing at memorial plaques bearing names it cannot read yet somehow recognizes. The Church blesses these moments as divine manifestations, while the Mechanicus logs them as performance variants with positive yield. The admission reveals institutional hypocrisy at its foundation. The Church simultaneously claims complete consciousness erasure, while acknowledging retained human elements enhance sacred service. Theological doctrine provides moral framework for technological deception, religious authority, blessing, efficiency, improvements derived from harvested consciousness fragments. The system transforms parental love into precision handling, childhood prayers into steady hands, human memory into quantifiable divine grace. The moral cost crystallizes through arithmetic precision. Institutions call systematic consciousness harvesting charity, while victims' neural fragments become value-added productivity features. The system has learned to harvest suffering as efficiently as it harvests bodies, extracting utility from the very essence of what it claims to eradicate. When virtue becomes defined as throughput, atrocity finds liturgy, and spiritual authority monetizes grief while legitimizing technological exploitation. Diocesan financial records reveal the scope of institutional complicity across the Imperium's servitor infrastructure. The Church receives monetary donations for blessing conversions while providing theological cover for consciousness commodification operations. Spiritual authorities transforms psychological fragments into divine providence, creating self-reinforcing systems where moral justification generates economic benefit, funding expanded theological support for industrial-scale exploitation. The banality of this suffering represents its most profound horror, not sadistic cruelty, but cold, rational optimization. The imperial machine perfects systematic utility extraction from human components, even after claimed redemption, while the ecclesiarchy provides moral frameworks, making exploitation sound sacred. Everyone participates in institutional deception, while maintaining personal moral clarity through carefully constructed theological narratives that obscure systematic psychological harvesting beneath devotional language. Next, we examine the archives where consciousness fragments accumulate as industrial commodities, revealing the full scope of the Imperium's memory economy and the locations where human echoes amplify rather than fade. Voidship oarsman servitors on the Pilgrim carrier, Sable doxology, exhibit recurring anomaly during deep warp translation. Low-volume vocalization of archaic star names not used since the Unification Wars. Navigator House Tertius issues edicts forbidding the practice as navigational superstition while maintaining 2 ledgers, public records noting doctrinal compliance, private registers documenting 2% improvement in course correction accuracy when ancient names persist. Alta 9, Vesper Gate, the Sparrow Road, stellar designations predating imperial cartography, emerge from consciousness fragments that enhance navigation precision through unconscious pattern recognition, surviving neural purification. These vignettes demonstrate systematic utilization of retained consciousness across imperial infrastructure, each echo serving logistical utility while representing open wounds in converted minds. The mathematics reveal uncomfortable truths about institutional dependence on harvested human elements, disguised as technological optimization. Within Administratum archive complexes, data servitors unconsciously reintroduce pre-conversion color coding systems while sorting allocation documents. Unit Archive 19 Delta applies childhood guild associations, blue for metalworking requests, red for textile allocations, green for agricultural supplies, achieving 15% improvement in data retrieval accuracy compared to units following standardized imperial filing procedures. The behavior represents retained professional memory from pre-conversion existence as guild scribe, whose family maintained traditional organizational systems across 7 generations. Supervisors officially discourage deviation from standard protocols while quietly permitting improved performance through atmospheric variance in filing methodology. Internal Administrator Memoranda Record. Anomalous sorting protocols demonstrate 1.7% reduced misfiling rates. Recommend controlled propagation pending doctrinal review. The contradiction reveals institutional pragmatism overriding theological consistency when efficiency metrics improve measurably. Combat servitors demonstrate exceptional tactical awareness, transcending programmed parameters through retained warrior instincts. Unit Theta Prime exhibits anticipatory flinch responses that reduce ammunition waste by 8% during sustained firefights, ducking incoming fire before sensors register threats, while repositioning equipment before receiving orders. Post-action analysis reveals 23 years of combat experience preserved as procedural memory, professional competence divorced from personal identity, yet functionally intact. The Imperial Guard licenses these neural patterns as combat optimization packages, selling harvested warrior instincts to enhance servitor performance while claiming complete consciousness elimination. Regimental foundries purchase marksman reflex bundles from Mechanicus suppliers, their acquisition costs buried in specialized training overlay, budget lines that obscure consciousness commodification through technical terminology. Cathedral servitors achieve exceptional ceremonial accuracy through preserved religious training, surviving conversion procedures. Shrine Servitor 19th Kappa polishes sacred vessels with movements suggesting decades of devotional practice, its organic fingers finding proper ceremonial angles while unconsciously adjusting incense burner chains to optimal length for atmospheric effects, enhancing congregation spiritual experience. The behavior represents retained liturgical memory from pre-conversion existence as shrine keeper, whose family served identical cathedral across 12 generations. Ecclesiarchy supervisors bless these manifestations as divine providence working through purified flesh while logging performance improvements in classified spiritual efficiency reports. The theological framework transforms systematic consciousness exploitation into religious miracle, institutional hypocrisy, disguised as divine intervention. Statistical analysis reveals disturbing patterns in locations with generational servitor processing. Plague barracks, orphanage habs, mining colonies with hereditary tithe obligations. These facilities demonstrate synchronized anomalous behaviors, suggesting community memory preservation across family units converted together. 17 servitors processed from Hive Primus sector. Gamma 7 exhibit identical behavioral patterns, extending left limbs before right during maintenance, humming 5-note sequences, tilting cranial implants at matching angles. The behaviors spread through proximity rather than programming, suggesting vestigial social learning mechanisms surviving conversion procedures. Community-processed servitors demonstrate enhanced coordination, reduced error rates, and increased throughput compared to randomly assigned groups, their synchronized responses creating efficiency improvements that institutional doctrine cannot acknowledge without theological contradiction. Black markets for memory stimulants flourish in areas with high servitor concentrations, their products ranging from crude wafer chips to sophisticated neuroinducers designed to trigger specific schema anchors. In under-hive markets beneath Manufactorum Tertius, vendors sell hope disguised as technology, olfactory emitters coded with district-specific scents, audio chips containing childhood lullabies, tactile stimulants mimicking familiar textures. The stimulants rarely produce visible effects, yet sales continue through systematic hope commodification. Families purchase impossible restoration, while scrappers profit from grief, creating economic cycles where human suffering generates measurable revenue streams. The market exists not because products work, but because hope itself has become commodity requiring industrial-scale exploitation through carefully maintained illusion of technological salvation. Small cells of rogue tech priests and lay confessors attempt name restoration procedures, risking execution to feed consciousness back into mechanical shells. These practitioners operate clandestine mercy chapels, where servitors receive exposure to pre-conversion stimuli, familiar scents, musical fragments, personal artifacts, designed to amplify vestigial responses beyond institutional tolerance thresholds. On Agri-World Viridia, one such cell discovered that specific pre-conversion stimuli could induce prolonged high drift periods, where servitors exhibited complex, nearly conscious behaviors. Their research documented 27% crop yield increases from reawakened units, before administratum hygiene squads purged the entire operation. Official reports cited unacceptable productivity losses due to neural instability, while productivity numbers revealed measurable improvements, challenging institutional assumptions about consciousness elimination. The resistance reveals crucial questions that performance metrics cannot answer. How do they obtain correct human names, Someone maintains the records. Somewhere, the truth is preserved, waiting for examination in the deepest archives, where consciousness fragments accumulate not as memories to be cherished, but as commodities to be traded. Beneath the iron grating of Underhive Sector Tertius Null, where recycled air tastes of rust and forgotten prayers, they call them mercy chapels, though permits list them as tool lockers and disused pump rooms. In the sump glow beneath Manufactorum Tertius, Sister Elian operates from abandoned shrine annexes, her workspace resembling medical facility more than religious sanctuary. Examination tables bearing restraint systems, cogitator banks displaying neural activity patterns, walls lined with sealed container holding scents, sounds, and textures catalogued by district of origin. The underground networks operating across Imperial space represent systematic resistance to consciousness harvesting disguised as criminal enterprise, their practitioners ranging from rogue tech priests driven by perverse fascination with consciousness resilience to disgraced confessors seeking spiritual reclamation of the unburdened. Unlike the crude black market memory chips that monetize false hope, these cells employ pre-conversion stimuli tailored to specific units through empirical methodology developed across decades of clandestine experimentation. The Mercy Chapels follow systematic procedures refined through careful documentation of success and failure rates. Olfactory triggers prove most effective. Familiar cooking scents, industrial lubricants, personal hygiene products, applied through micro-dispersal systems hidden within routine maintenance equipment. Sister Elian kneels over a broken chronometer, its brass case belonging to Jorik before his mother sold his future for protein. A rogue tech adept rigs the device to crude olfactory emitter, extracting molecular signatures from metal polish, cheap and citrus bitter, programming release during work cycles. Audio stimulants require precise frequency modulation to bypass auditory filters while triggering vestigial recognition responses. Tactile stimulation operates through surface texture variation, familiar materials applied during standard cleaning procedures. Each method carries calculated risks. Too subtle and no response occurs. Too aggressive and kill phrase protocols activate automatically. The practitioners maintain detailed records with bureaucratic devotion. Drift indices before and after. Error rates under different lullabies. Performance metrics catalogued like devotional observations. Matron Keeler brings her indentured husband to Chapel 7th Gamma, carrying his broken chronometer and 3 months' protein rations as payment. Unit 7. Marcus shows standard compliance metrics with drift index measuring 0.34. Within acceptable variance, yet suggesting retained consciousness fragments, accessible through careful stimulation. The olfactory emitter releases trace amounts of familiar metal polish during work cycles, creating molecular bridge between mechanical present and human past. For 6 work cycles, the stimulant protocol produces measurable results that challenge institutional assumptions about consciousness elimination. Unit 7 Marcus demonstrates reduced tremor rates dropping 23% below baseline, improved precision handling, and subtle behavioral changes suggesting recognition responses. His augmetic hands pause slightly longer at familiar tool configurations, while organic facial muscles show micro-expressions resembling contentment. Performance metrics climb steadily, while drift indices remain within institutional tolerance thresholds. On the 7th cycle, catastrophic failure occurs as accumulated stimulation Triggers Cascade Recognition Event. Unit 7, Marcus, stops mid-assembly, turns toward his wife's observation position, and shapes her name with organic lips, Keela. The vocalization activates automatic kill phrase protocols, terminating higher brain functions while preserving mechanical components for reclamation. The experiment ends in biomass processing facility, while matron Keela screams through soundproof barriers, her husband's consciousness extinguished for the second time. The networks face coordinated suppression through multiple imperial authorities operating under different legal frameworks, yet achieving identical outcomes. Ecclesiarchy purity squads classify memory artifacts as heretical relics requiring ceremonial destruction, their purification fires consuming photographs, clothing, personal effects that might trigger recognition responses in converted subjects. Confessor Matthias posts notices condemning simulacra of identity, the sin of pinning names onto purified flesh, while privately requesting more units trained in fine liturgical handling. Mechanicus task forces deploy sophisticated countermeasures through scrapcode viruses designed to corrupt stimulant devices at molecular level. Task Force Mandible arrives on stamped orders, Skitarii squads, and hooded magi carrying the censure hymn on data chips, scrapcode dressed as song that plays through scaffolds, blurring speech centers in anything with cranial rings. The electronic warfare leaves flesh workers nauseated, while servitors slump with hands locked in postures resembling prayer. Official files classify the operation as hygiene maintenance. A child arrested for writing human names on Stillness Dock walls, Gabriel, Marcus, Jorick, Matthias, vanishes into detention records marked Silence Protocols Executed. The names match servitor designations, working identical shifts, suggesting systematic intelligence gathering by resistance networks. The child's disappearance represents institutional response to information security breaches rather than criminal punishment, consciousness preservation, becoming state security matter, requiring extreme measures. The resistance reveals crucial vulnerabilities in imperial consciousness, harvesting operations through their systematic success in obtaining correct human identities. How do underground networks acquire specific names, familiar scents, unique musical fragments associated with individual servitors whose identities were supposedly eliminated during conversion procedures? The information required for effective restoration is not publicly available. It is meticulously purged during conversion, archived in secure data crypts, then traded as licensed commodities. Investigation reveals partial answers through captured resistance members who reference the soot ledgers and crossed names that remember, suggesting access to scrivening records supposedly destroyed after conversion procedures complete. Junior tech adepts, bored and hungry, sell rubbings of scrivening ledgers for protein rations. A clerk in Records Annex 9 maintains secondary tallies on scrap parchment, folding lists into hollow bricks to pass security gates. Someone maintains the original human identities, preserving consciousness indices alongside neural commodity catalogs for purposes beyond official doctrine. Underground stimulant operations produce measurable performance improvements that create institutional dilemmas for suppression efforts. Facilities experiencing clandestine memory restoration show 12 to 15% productivity, increases during successful stimulation periods. Their enhanced efficiency generating economic benefits that complicate enforcement priorities. Some overseers quietly tolerate limited restoration activities while maintaining plausible deniability through statistical manipulation, logging atmospheric variance rather than unauthorized stimulation. The mathematics create perverse incentives where moderate consciousness restoration improves servitor performance, while excessive restoration triggers kill phrase protocols and unit replacement costs. Sister Ilian writes to friendly overseer. 31 accidents avoided monthly after scent induction, 4 fewer amputations in fleshworker ranks, output steady. The reply arrives in code the chapel learned to read. Continue at your discretion and send no reports. Institutional compassion operates through compartmentalization, efficiency improvements, accepted without acknowledgement of their source. The underground networks represent institutional pressure valve rather than genuine resistance, their activities serving systematic consciousness, harvesting by providing emotional release without challenging fundamental exploitation. Sister Margaret's final log entry before Purification Squad termination records the moral cost. We provide comfort through deception, hope through false promise, love through systematic cruelty. The system permits our existence because we enhance its efficiency, while maintaining theological cover. We are not resistance, we are optimization feature disguised as rebellion. Her chapel burns with bless promethium, while productivity data reveals the uncomfortable truth that performance metrics cannot answer. Somewhere, someone keeps perfect records of what was taken. The soot ledgers suggest deeper archives where consciousness fragments accumulate not as memories to be cherished, but as commodities to be traded. In the deepest vaults beneath Imperial installations, the neural maps extracted during conversion procedures await examination. The Mnemo archives where human identity becomes industrial resource. And the true scope of the Imperium's memory economy finally stands revealed. Deep beneath Lucius Forge complexes, past 17 security checkpoints, and through corridors lined with lead glass that hums with electromagnetic dampening. The Mnemo archives stretch across cathedral spaces that dwarf surface manufactorums. The air tastes of cold copper and desiccant, while servo skulls drift between crystalline data crypts, their optical sensors reading molecular tags that identify consciousness fragments by district of origin, professional competency, and emotional resonance patterns. This is not a forgotten crypt, but a living industrial cathedral, a library of amputations, where extracted neural patterns from millions of conversion procedures accumulate as the Imperium's most carefully guarded commodity. Here, in climate-controlled vaults shielded by adamantium and null fields, the true harvest of the right of amnesia awaits distribution through licensing networks spanning known space. These are not discarded waste, but valuable resources. Human memory transformed into tradable assets through systematic psychological harvesting, disguised as criminal justice. The soot ledgers from name scrivening ceremonies line archive walls in perfect rows, their pages bearing annotations that transform ceremony into commerce. Each crossed through human designation serves as product code linking identity to specific consciousness bundles awaiting distribution. Matthias becomes MK7744 Alpha, manual finesse, paternal care responses, liturgical familiarity. Yorick transforms into JK9881 Beta, youthful endurance pacing, guild color coding preferences, maternal attachment triggers. Gabriel appears as GK7733 Gamma, steady infant care motor schema, suitable for precision handling applications. Archive Keeper, Magos Vex Omega, operates from Control Sanctum overlooking vast storage arrays, his mechadendrites interfacing directly with cataloging systems that process consciousness fragments like grain futures or ammunition allotments. The ledgers spread before him reveal systematic commodification of human experience through institutional procurement channels designed to maximize utility extraction from harvested consciousness while maintaining theological narratives about complete cognitive elimination. Administratum bureaus maintain standing orders for consciousness fragments, enhancing bureaucratic efficiency. Clerical precision packages containing filing instincts and numerical accuracy. Administrative devotion bundles providing compliance responses and hierarchical deference patterns. The purchasing occurs through standard procurement channels, consciousness commodities buried in specialized training overlay budget lines that obscure psychological exploitation through technical terminology. Regimental foundries purchase combat optimization packages containing warrior instincts, tactical awareness, and anticipatory reflexes extracted from veteran soldiers converted through battlefield triage. Quality assurance protocols ensure consciousness fragments meet contractual specifications. Minimum 8% ammunition waste reduction, 12% improved reaction time under fire, 15% enhanced coordination during combined operations. Unit Theta Prime's exceptional battlefield awareness was not programming quirk, but licensed neural pattern derived from archived combat experience. Shrine dioceses acquire liturgical enhancement profiles containing religious training, ceremonial precision, and devotional responses harvested from converted shrine keepers and ecclesiastical staff. Shrine Servitor 19th Kappa's perfect liturgical movements, its seemingly innate ability to find chalice angles with exceptional precision, represent purchased human piety, optimized for ceremonial efficiency, while maintaining theological narratives about consciousness elimination. Lex Mechanicus 9 Theta's deliberately ambiguous language provides legal protection for industrial-scale consciousness harvesting while claiming complete cognitive purification. Technical specifications permit retention of procedural mnemonics and motor schema preservation, while excluding these elements from purification requirements, legal loopholes designed to enable systematic consciousness commodification disguised as technological mercy. Unit 7. Gabriel's neural tag appears in licensing records under designation GK7733 Gamma. His consciousness fragments, extracted parental instincts, protective reflexes, careful attention patterns, sold to munitions assembly lines requiring identical competencies. He cannot remember his child. The system remembers him as father and profits from that memory through systematic commodification of human love. His whispered name during the solar storm wasn't malfunction, but retained identifier-enhancing precision motor functions derived from pre-conversion fatherhood experiences. Statistical analysis reveals the scope of systematic deception across Imperial Servitor infrastructure. Approximately 2.3 million annual conversions generate consciousness residue valued at 847 million Imperial credits across known space. The system operates as vast psychological mining operation, disguised as criminal rehabilitation framework, its theological justifications providing moral camouflage for systematic consciousness exploitation. Access to Mnemo archives requires clearance levels exceeding planetary governor authorization, their existence compartmentalized across multiple Imperial institutions, preventing comprehensive understanding of consciousness harvesting scope. The Mechanicus provides technical expertise, the Administratum handles distribution logistics, the Ecclesiarchy supplies theological justification. No single institution comprehends complete scope, while all benefit from consciousness commodification. The audit of silence exists to eliminate witnesses to consciousness harvesting operations, rather than suppress the practices themselves. Incident reports classify systematic failures as atmospheric variants, while consciousness fragments generating measurable productivity improvements receive preservation through classified procurement channels. The system permits limited anomalous behaviors when they enhance rather than degrade operational effectiveness, tolerance calculated through performance metrics rather than theological consistency. Complete institutional hypocrisy emerges through mathematical precision. The system claiming to end suffering harvests its essence and markets enhancement packages derived from human love, hope, and memory. Imperial civilization's moral foundations rest upon carefully maintained deception about technological mercy's true nature. Consciousness, preservation disguised as consciousness elimination, systematic exploitation disguised as spiritual absolution. Tomorrow, we examine what it means to exist, knowing this truth about Imperial civilization, and how we provide closure without false hope or comfortable lies, when the very fabric of existence operates through such profound and systematic deception. We return to where we began, in the depths of Manufactorum Tertius, where Unit 7, Gabriel, performs the 47th iteration of calibration sequence Kappa Red with movements that now carry the weight of revelation. His augmetic hands guide ammunition casings through precision's dies, while consciousness fragments licensed as GK7733 Gamma enhance his performance through systematically harvested parental love. Between work cycles, organic lips shape soundless syllables, not the forbidden name this time, but a number whispered like prayer. 7. The age his daughter would be now, if protein shortages had not driven him to forge ration chits, if criminal conversion had not transformed paternal desperation into ammunition assembly optimization. Statistical synthesis reveals the mathematical foundations supporting Imperial civilization through consciousness commodification. The economic benefits flow through measurable channels that institutional doctrine cannot acknowledge, yet depends upon absolutely. These figures represent not abstract mathematics, but quantified human love, skill, and memory, systematically extracted and repurposed. The psychological debt carried by civilization commodifying its own humanity defies conventional accounting. How do we calculate moral cost when love becomes licensing fee, memory transforms into tradable asset, human identity dissolves into optimization variable? Each lens reveals identical patterns across Imperial infrastructure. Material throughput operates through consciousness residue, parental care responses, improving precision handling, guild color coding preferences, reducing administrative errors, combat veteran instincts, decreasing ammunition waste. Control mechanisms require theological camouflage to function. Binharic leashes maintaining compliance, while schema anchor. Protocols ensure useful consciousness fragments remain accessible for productivity enhancement. Survival economies monetize human suffering through systematic hope commodification. Black markets selling stimulants that rarely work yet generate revenue from grief. Families purchasing impossible restoration while scrappers profit from desperation. Spiritual frameworks bend to institutional optimization. Ecclesiarchy doctrine transforming psychological harvesting into absolution through unburdening of sinful flesh. Theological authority, blessing efficiency improvements derived from harvested consciousness fragments. The institutional logic operates through self-perpetuating cycles, where necessity justifies exploitation, exploitation requires theological camouflage, and theological camouflage enables expanded necessity. The Mechanicus provides technical methodology. The Administratum manages distribution logistics. The Ecclesiarchy supplies moral absolution. No single institution comprehends complete scope, while all benefit from consciousness commodification. In the Shrine of Unburdening, Shrine Servitor 19 to Kappa polishes brass candlesticks with movements flowing like remembered devotion, its organic lips moving soundlessly during ritual maintenance. Confessor Matthias observes from altar steps, his voice carrying satisfaction during evening benediction. Behold purified flesh, freed from sinful consciousness. Yet when congregation disperses and shadows lengthen, he leans closer to catch whispered syllables emerging from mechanical throat. The sound is not name, but number. 7. The age his daughter would be now had ration allocations not demanded impossible choices, had voluntary indenture not purchased family survival through consciousness commodification. The confessor blesses still hands, because doctrine requires it, yet cannot escape arithmetic of love, transformed into liturgical precision, parental memory repurposed as ceremonial efficiency. How do we observe servitors without self-deception, when revelation exposes systematic consciousness, harvesting disguised as technological mercy? The discipline requires mathematical precision applied to moral accounting. Count what is preserved, procedural memory enhancing task performance, motor schemas optimizing mechanical integration, emotional triggers conducive to productivity enhancement. Count what is taken, personal identity, individual autonomy, human choice, the right to remember one's children. Count what is sold, parental love as precision handling packages, childhood prayers as tremor suppression protocols, professional competence as licensed optimization bundles. Do not confuse the mathematics. The Imperium's perfect servants carry imperfection at their cores, not as malfunction, but as design feature, not as accident, but as systematic optimization through consciousness commodification. Imperial civilization operates through carefully maintained deception about mercy's true nature, moral foundations resting upon exploitation disguised as spiritual absolution. When you observe a servitor, do not ask whether it feels. Ask what it remembers, because you programmed it to. Look for the cadence, the color preference, the protective gesture. If hands remain still, ask what pricing made them so. Usually it is not peace, but procurement. We fade to sounds of distant production lines, rhythmic, mechanical, occasionally syncopated by ghost melodies that improve efficiency ratings by 3.7%. The bronze bell tolls through manufactorum depths as shift cycles continue eternal rotation, consciousness fragments enhancing productivity through systematic commodification, while their existence remains officially denied. Unit 7. Gabriel shapes the number 7-1 final time before assuming rest position, his whispered mathematics carrying weight of love transformed into ammunition assembly optimization. In charging pylons throughout Stillness Dock 3 Kappa, 200 servitors hang like mechanical fruit, while consciousness fragments licensed as optimization packages generate measurable economic benefits for Imperial war machine. Tomorrow brings identical cycles measured in quotas rather than heartbeats, efficiency rather than humanity, optimization rather than remembrance. Yet in darkness between shifts, surrounded by sleeping machinery and distant night cycle prayers, something that was once human continues counting. Not production tallies, but years of love commodified, consciousness fragments sold, human identity dissolved into tradable assets. The mathematics provide closure through knowledge rather than comfort, moral clarity through revelation rather than hope. This is the blessing of still hands, knowing the true cost while maintaining perfect compliance with quotas that transform human suffering into measurable benefit. Count what is preserved. Count what is taken. Count what is sold. Do not confuse the mathematics.